You know,
Sunday now come, gentlemen. Sunday is here.
let me tell you something. When you have a show like this, every Sunday, it's like you can't wait for 2 o'clock. Good afternoon. Welcome to Sunday Scoops. It's another Sunday, and we're here to give you Jamaica's music legacy. 60 years. This is part 2, and I don't think we're even going to touch 30 years in a reach, but
No,
we're certainly going to try.
We're going to try. And our guest today in studio, beaming live from St. Andrew, Jamaica, is none other than Mr. Mikey Bennett. So work hard.
The man who went straighten it out for you.
Let's up. Yeah, got it.
Now, last week, Garth, Mikey, again, welcome to Sunday
we touched some serious tune. I think the standout for me, based on the conversation we had, was Duppy Gunman. That was my highlight out of all of the tune them last week. In terms also that song by, I think, Hopeton Lewis. Yes.
In fact, that's the song. Prior to coming on here just now, a friend of mine called me from Jamaica, and we were talking exactly about that song. Say that song is probably the most important song to come out of Jamaica at the time. Mikey, you had alluded to that last week as we developed the conversation.
Take It Easy, 1966.
Take It Easy.
Arrangement by Lynn Tate.
And he made that point. He said the man who arranged the tune was even a Jamaican. And I said, well, by the time the Lynn Tate done decided to now go back to Trinidad again.
Him transplant.
So, him don't transplant himself. But, we talk about 60 years of Jamaican music, and that is I think this is a good launching pad from which to step off. What we did last week, God, we
went up to 1975.
1975, and so we want to take it from there.
1966 was a year which heralded and ushered in a year that was been steeped in Rastafarian prophecy, and is the year 1977. So we're going to kick off 1976 with Culture's prophetic tune, a thing named 2/7's Clash. Yeah, Richard, 3 wicked tune. Actually, I should have played them the other way around. I should have played 2/7's Clash, then I Need a Roof, and right after that, Ballistic Affair. As a man said, the gully I got run red. And 1976 was an election year in Jamaica, and we don't know that was the year that them say we have them under heavy manners.
The 3 songs that you have played serve some very significant purposes. But again, let me throw the discussion over at Mikey, and we pick it up from there. Mike.
Yeah, I'm happy to be a part of this. When we talk about social commentary, it don't get better than this, right? Because if you notice, the common theme in these 3 songs was someplace safe to live. Someplace to live.
Yeah.
Both economical and someplace safe. And those of us who remember that era, the Ballistic Affair was, it's just a well put together song, and it just summed up the era so well. People were concerned about safety. And
absolutely. Personal safety.
To live. And sometimes when we think about things there, when I have to take a trip into the inner city and realize, you hear all the while that people go down, kick down doors. And because you live in a concrete building with strong door, you wonder how easy it is. You didn't realize that a lot of people were living in some board houses with very limited security. So a roof over your head was a crucial thing. And trust me, and there's a period, the Ballistic Affair thing is that, everyone is living in fear because of this Ballistic Affair. It's just like a thermometer at the time. It was so true. So true.
Again, we want to touch, let me step a little bit further back, because 2/7's Clash, a prophetic tune. It was, and we just celebrated Marcus Garvey's birthday.
August 17th.
When was that? 17th of August, 17th, right?
Yeah, 1887.
But at the time, the first half of the 1970s, the country was becoming significantly more aware of Garvey and his role. It took the country almost 40 years to be able to appreciate Garvey's contribution, to the development of the Jamaican society. And culture took that prophecy about, Garvey leaving prison. When he leave the prison, the door is going to be locked, etc., etc., never open again. Talk about the structure of the cotton tree at down by what was it? By the ferry police station, that kind of thing. And so it was culture providing Jamaicans with an interpretation of the what was forecasted and the history of all of it. And here we are, some almost 50 years later, and the song still has strong resonance, in terms of a reminder of Garvey's role and how the system treated with him at the time.
Yeah, but it also got to show the importance of the music, In other words, like them used to say, however accurately, if you want to hide something from a black man, you write it in a book, right?
Right.
Very few people were reading certain things. And
True that.
And the school system tended to make the whole Garvey thing an intellectual situation. It wasn't lifetime, it wasn't real. I became a member of the, I was asked to become a member of the Friends of Marcus Garvey. And because I didn't realize that Marcus Garvey had written some lyrics that I wanted to put into songs. And Marcus Garvey was interested in a lot of things. They humanized him. I think we have dehumanized Marcus Garvey to a point. I mean, fine, he's a prophet and all that, but the realness of him eluded us through the books. It was the songwriters and the singers
who kept his thing alive.
Yeah, man.
And personalized it. And in fact, he became the template. He became that topic, if you will. You have to give the songwriters credit. Leroy Smart, who, a colorful character he was at the time, but that song, as you made the point, was seminal because it sought to the ballistic affair side, but culture and Joe Gibbs, that collaboration that took Marcus Garvey, the topic of Marcus Garvey rather, and turned it into a history lesson for a lot of us, And in fact, I was a cadet at the time. I remember we were at a camp at Dint Hill, and we were coming into, what was it thing? Buster had died, and there was a funeral. There was a funeral thing. 1976, there was going to be the Bustamante funeral, and so we were brought back to Kingston to form a guard of honor. And people were talking about the prophecy of the Garvey prophecy to the extent that in 77, on the day, the 7th of July, 1977, a whole heap of Jamaican people never go to work. They decided to stay home because of the fear of the fulfillment of this prophecy, and it catch them outside. It's part and parcel of this whole thing, black heart man, and we drive fear. So they use the Marcus Garvey thing sort of. There's a fear factor, but again, the factor of the culture of it wasn't lost on us. To Mighty Diamonds, I Need a Roof. Remember, to 1976-77 was the period of the realization of these social policies that the Manley administration had been putting out. You had a lot of these sites and services home. To your point, Mikey, about the security of being able to own a home, to have somewhere to call your own. That in 1977, Jamaica still had a massive housing problem. And so the Mighty Diamonds, again, took that and made it into song, immortalizing the issues that we were faced with at the time. Garth?
Yeah. Next up is 1977. And we're going to run about 3 or 4 songs, starting out with Culture again, Zion Gate. Yeah. Listen, man and woman's story will forever be in contention. But let's talk about See Them A Come, Zion Gate, Natty Passing, GCE with Short of the President. Before that was Culture. And then we ended up with The Meditations, Woman Is Like a Shadow.
Mike.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me of a story I heard about Bob Marley and Marty McFly them. Bob had a habit of just going and sitting down amongst Martimer them for like 2-3 days and doing something. And the next thing them heard from him was a song that probably just sum up the conversation or reveal something that him took out of that public conversations. When you listen to Culture, because then I've had the benefit of being in some situation where you hear some reasoning under some tree, some bridging. It's like you can actually picture the precursor to some of these songs are sitting and reason among some man there. And like I don't know if I mentioned it on the program, the use of the word them in that time was against the system, the Babylon system.
System, yeah.
We don't know how we and them are going to work it out.
Man, where, you know, you're against, all right? But them, the use of the them word, them, me don't know what me and them are coming.
Them Monday.
Jaja see them a come.
Exactly. It's a bigger force, not that like a parochial, you know, jealous thing or, you know, arms house thing. And that is one of the things that come out of that thing. And like God said, the ever-present man or woman situation. Whether it's about phone
Search your phone. All right, boss, I got you.
Ever-present has always been. And what it showed that the musicians were communicating what was most important in their life. I know the story about that particular situation and that song, and it was just what was happening in their life. So it was like him was just bearing him soul. So in other words, it's what you call inspired music. So I just wanted to add that based on something that I've heard before. But it's three powerful songs.
A man is like an arrow, a woman is like a shadow.
Never let a woman know how much you love her. Yep.
But that's your point, Bill.
You know, but Mike, we have come a long way, you know, because we have moved, we have regressed, if you will, because today, man or woman issue, and you know, it promotes the domestic violence issue. Somehow, these guys, based on this song, the words of the song, you get a sense of an ability to cope. Whereas today, that's not the experiences that we're having. We somehow have lost this. And maybe it's a good time to look back at, you know, the value of the music as a teaching tool, if you will.
And 1977 was a year that heralded the Disco 45, you know, with Joe Gibbs and using the Part 2. And quite a few things happened in 1977 too. Bob Marley's album, Exodus, that was released. Third World, 96 Degrees in the Shade. That was another big album that year. Marcia Griffiths did her Naturally album. As a matter of fact, she redid it with Sonia Pottinger.
Right.
And of course, Dennis Brown had a couple of hits that year, like Natty, Stay at Home, with Natty on top. And of course, Wolves and Leopards, which was a very big monster hit too. And Gregory Isaacs with tune like Oh What a Feeling and Tumbling Tears. So it's not that there wasn't any other songs apart from those three songs. But those are the songs.
Those three songs were, I couldn't argue with you with that. And I think Mikey shares this sentiment. It's very difficult to argue against those songs as being the three most powerful songs.
And that's why I called up and let the listeners have an idea of what else was happening at the time.
It is important that we give credence to the work that Joe Gibbs was doing at the time. Because Joe Gibbs in his own right transformed the music, or the presentation of the music, moving away from the 2.5, 3 minute 7-inch 45 to the 12-inch, and the combining of the vocal with the DJ at the end.
Yeah, because on Zion Gate was another big DJ team with Prince Mohammed, a 40-leg dread.
Yeah, the dread now the 40-leg.
And that was also, again, Rasta putting forth the foot to say, and then Peter Tosh had his album too, Legalize It, with tune like Equal Rights and them tune like.
But it's interesting that Prince Mohammed at the time wasn't even a Rasta man. Yes, Mike.
There's something else that it marked significantly, you know. It marked the moving away from the sound system with a bunch of selectors to the dub plate situation.
Right.
So a lot of things that Joe Gibbs was one of them people who had him ears to the ground internationally, and was responding to the demand from the ethnic pockets, Europe and the thing there. So England was very popular because, like I said, more sound systems. Everybody can have 2 or 3 top selector on him sound. So the whole question of the dub plate and the thing came out, and the importance of that. People realize the commercial value of that situation, the version and the thing. And
Right.
so that is one of the things that you have to give Joe Gibbs credit for. I mean, Joe Gibbs, and by Joe Gibbs, I mean Errol Thompson.
Errol Thompson.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
Mighty Two.
Yeah.
The Mighty Two.
Yes, Gibbo was the brain and the marketer, but Errol Thompson
Was the man behind this, the engineer.
Yeah,
Engineer, arranger, everything.
I mean, Willie, oh God, I will name again. Gets it.
Willie
I mean,
Lindo?
creating the music in the studio, then. But I mean, Joe Gibbs had just as a branching out internationally, set up everything in Florida and stuff. But
Yeah,
in terms of Joe Gibbs, he saw the bigger picture. I mean, he must really after the big things. He probably just never dot the I's and cross
all the T's, which we're gonna get to that in a minute. Crossing the I's and dot the T. Garth, what you have?
We're going to run
there?
3 more quick songs. Marcia Griffiths, Dreamland. Then we're going to run another Marcia Aitken, redoing her version of an earlier Alton Ellis song, My Man. And of course, we're going to finish up again. Because one of the things we realized, culture dominated the 70s. There's hardly a Saturday morning that you turn on your radio, whether JBC or RJR, and not hear a culture song. And that was from the Kumbolo album, a song named Not to Never Get Rid. But kicking it off with Marcia Griffiths' Dreamland. Yeah, we only gave you 2 little pieces from 1981, and that was Barrington Levy's 21 Girls Salute and Black Uhuru, General Penitentiary.
A two central song that, because them 2 songs that introduce the two elements. I mean, Mikey pick it up there, but Black Uhuru and the, what they symbolize in terms of the music at the time,
And if
and
you
of course,
didn't know,
Barrington Levy.
Uhuru means freedom.
Mikey.
But Barrington Levy was someone who is an observer, and without fear of, analytic criticism or intellectual criticism, him just said it like how him said it. But because his vocals were so good and he was so intent on what he was saying, he was communicating with a significant portion of the population. So whether you never whether the language or the thing wasn't, he was talking about a situation that was important to him and to him bring them. And that is one of the powers of the music. And then on the other side now, we have had so many situations where with incarceration of people that we know and people that think. And Michael Rose, just spoke about the jail situation in such a haunted way. In other words, discouraging anybody from even going there. So these are 2, one was encouraging discouraging men from fighting over women. And this one was discouraging people from going to this place called prison. It's not a nice thing, It's not a nice thing. And when you listen to the sermon in a Michael Rose voice, it just, yes, don't go there. Don't end up there. I used to do some work in the prisons. And let me tell you, is the longest 2 hours in the world. You're going and there's some when you get close behind you. And I always said to myself, you can imagine when you're coming in here in a couple of years and you hear that gate close out, what's it? Because every time you hear that gate close behind, you do something.
That's it. Yeah.
It has a finality.
Yeah, man. You leave in 2 hours time, but
You now go a door again.
It's amazing, Mikey, that how similar our paths have been over the years, because I did a little bit of social work with the prisons with General Penitentiary down on St. Thomas Street there with Susan Alexander. She had an art program which I kind of had cottoned into by when I worked at the library, and so we would go down there on a weekend. We usually try to go on a Thursday, and then Susan Alexander more time on the weekend. And I think at the time she had opened an art gallery on Harbour Street. So to your point, going through those gates, that heavy gate, when the gate shut behind you, I remember the first time you feel it in the pit of your stomach because you wonder, Jesus Christ, if this is, you feel like you're locked in with these guys.
But you do, you are.
And so you wonder how them can survive in a place like this. But it introduced you to another side, and I think again, we talk about the maturity or the maturing of our music at the time. The feature of Jamaican music that made it so special is that by the time we got into the 1960s onwards, we were taking ownership. So the songs were more about personal experiences. It was about what was the lived experience. And as you say, both Barrington Levy talking up to his brethren, he's the woman thing, this is, these are the pitfalls, if you will. And then on the other hand, you have Black Uhuru.
So I want us as a group kind of start to think about some of the rhythm tracks that we're hearing that making the waves here. How they can reappear in the future.
Absolutely. We're up on a break, Mikey. Let's run the break. We're gonna come back and pick it up from there. I think we're gonna have about 10 of these shows because can't. It's not so easy to do it in thing. But let's go to the break and we rest.
Every time I hear the sound, that was the sound of Mr. Muta Baruka, the Barefoot Dread. We started out giving you Mad Over Me, Yellow Man from out of 1981. Then went into 1982. Well, we couldn't just find two tune Richie. So we did Pastor Kutchi, Mighty Diamonds, Night Nurse, Gregory Isaacs, Big Ship with Freddie McGregor, Police in Helicopter, John Holt, and of course, the dub poetry, Muta Baruka, the man who walked into the hotel and said, "Well, you know with the barefoot?" Him say, "Boss, not a barefoot, I'm my foot."
God, you're gonna buy the liquor after the program is over, right? Because I don't know where you get that from. Mikey, the significance. Muta. Muta was not the first dub poet. People like
Onura,
Linton Kwesi Johnson. Take that. Actually, yes. Linton wasn't even the first. Oku Onura.
I remember Orlando Wong.
I remember presiding over a function at the library. I was working at the library, 1976-77, when just before they released him from prison, he had released his book called Echo, and that was the genesis of dub poetry. And then the Cultural Training Center across around the corner at Arthurwin Drive, you had people like Mikey Smith and a whole host of others. So Kwesi Johnson actually came afterwards, but because of the British thing, we pay more attention.
And also, before you come in, Mikey, Linton Kwesi had a very big song too called the Anti-Sus Poem, Sonny's Letter, which described, that was...
Yeah, man, that's probably my favorite thing.
That came out in 1980.
Yeah.
But your thoughts, Mike?
No, I think we just continue to see the emergence of just how things was diversifying. It wasn't any one subject matter. Again, people are talking about different things. And the branding, because that Big Ship thing branded Freddie McGregor to this date, that Big Ship.
To this day. In fact, that's the name of his promotion company, Big Ship Promotion.
Big song for him.
And him label too.
Powerful song for him, yeah, man, and the label. And the diversity. But God, what other interest to me is, I know you chose a couple songs out of a whole heap of other songs that you had highlight. You had earmark. It would be interesting to me to hear some other songs that we didn't play, but featured very strongly in that era.
1982, and the 1980s was an era that, you're talking about songs like Eddie Fitzroy, The Gun.
Yeah.
Rita Marley coming out to songs like Harambe.
Yeah.
Again, Eddie Fitzroy, the same year with his First Class Citizen album, that was a massive album. Because you're talking about songs like Youth Man Penitentiary, African Queen, Gregory Isaacs, Stranger in the Town, You know, Freddie McGregor also has another song, Holy Mount Zion. Carlton Livingston with Chalice in Mind. You know. Muta Baruka that year too, not just every time I hear the song, but he did Sit Down on the Wall, Butter Pan Culture, The System is a Fraud. Dennis Brown had Old Man River. John Holt also had another song dedicated to women, Fat She Fat.
Yes,
You know that song? And of course, Lady Ann's Informer on the Headless Rhythm with Johnny Osborne, Rock and Comenia.
You have to
which
play.
is a
You have
big,
to play the Lady Anne thing. But I want to go back to. I want to. You agree with that, Mikey?
and Yellow Man Morning Ride, you know. That was on Yellow Man and Fathead Bam Bam. Dennis Brown's Caress Me Girl. I tell you, Barry Salmon with one of his breakout songs, Riverbank. That was 1982 too.
The Muta Baruka thing, it's very significant that at a time when the music is sort of shifting into there's a kind of consolidation that's now coming out of Jamaican music in that 1980s period. It seems as if, to my mind, that having gotten rid of a lot of the political tribalism of the 70s, the atmosphere within the country had sort of settled, and so you're getting a different vibe, as you call it, Mikey. But then it was kind of the storm, the calm before the storm, because by the we introduced Yellow Man. Yellow Man was a significant shift in Jamaican music, right?
Yeah.
Marley by this time had passed on. The dancehall culture is now opening up. In fact, it opened up a little earlier because with Sugar Mine at 79.
Revisiting Studio One's
put some Studio One
catalog.
rhythms. Right. But Yellow Man was sort of the frontal attack of this thing. And what was worse is that Yellow Man sort of smaditized, to use a Rex Netherford word, the Dundus thing, because normally you say a Dundus in Jamaica and everybody, if him not walk on the side of the road, everybody going on the other side of the street.
Virgin albino.
Whatever you have. Well, we call it a Jamaica, we call him Dundus, albino, right? And so for somebody to poke fun at himself in the way Yellow Man did, and then use that as a springboard to literally take over Jamaican music in that 1981, 82 period up to about 1985 is very, very significant.
Yeah, man. A big song during that era too was Mighty Diamond's Heads of Government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. But
Yellow Man thing was a lesson in marketing, is a lesson in using whatever it is, you know, turning things to an advantage. And so people came out to see him because I heard him was doing this, ready to criticize. But he was so good at what he was doing that he was laughing first.
Yes.
But he was connected. I mean, as a Grace employee, I was wondering what you thought about the song.
I was at Grace Kennedy at the time, Mike. I was there. And I have to give credit to, it's a genius of, at the time it was Ivan O'Yee. Ivan now live in Canada. And he was the marketing man. In fact, he was the one who employed me away from the library at the time. And so when the Grace was literally, you know, we had just come out of the elections. Remember, we had the shortages of the 1970s. And so Grace Kennedy was kind of poised to literally launch their operation. The marketing department at Grace Kennedy was new because I went there to join that marketing department. And so when Yellow Man bust the song, first of all, there are two versions of the song. And they were trying to get it played on the radio. And Ivan approached Yellow Man and he reworked the lyrics to bring the ketchup thing in. And Grace, you know, through Ivan again, some dealings with the RJR under the quiet. And you know, we basically gave RJR the lion's share of what would have been Grace's advertising budget at the time. And they took, the song went to the moon and back, and Grace ketchup sales went to Mars, right? it established Grace Kennedy's ketchup as a leading tabletop sauce in the Caribbean.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yawdmedia.com, where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, don't forget to tell your friends.